Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Next 2020. My name's Gabriella Heiser, and I'm your host for this show on the Boca Raton Tribune TV. Today, we're going to be talking about a very important topic. We're going to be discussing mental health with two great guests, and I'm excited to bring them on the show and have this conversation that's needed. If you guys have any questions throughout the show or want to make any comments, definitely just put them in the comment section below, and we can answer your questions live on the show, or we can just discuss, etc. So without further ado, let's welcome our two guests, Monique and Shay. Hi, guys.
Hi.
How are you guys doing?
Great.
Good.
Very excited.
So let's get started. Can you guys tell the audience a little bit about yourselves? Where you went/go to school, what you studied, and what you decided to pursue what you're studying. So Monique, let's start with you.
Yeah, so I recently graduated from with my Bachelor's of Science at Lynn University, and that I did it in psychology. And right now I'm planning to do my Master's in psychology also at Lynn University. And the reason why I was inspired to pursue psychology was actually my exposure to psychology in high school. I took AP psychology and I just fell in love with it. And then after that, I just decided to major in it, and I've loved it so far. So, yeah.
That's awesome. What about you, Shay?
So I graduated from the University of Florida with my Bachelor's of Health Science in May 2019. And now I am pursuing my master's degree at Florida State University for speech language pathology. And I decided to embark on this career actually because of my brother, Connor. He has autism, and it's always been a life goal of mine to work with the autism community and others with developmental disabilities and other communication disorders.
That's amazing. Wow, you guys are doing great things. So I'm excited to have you both on this show just because I think you guys bring two different perspectives to the conversation. And I think mental health is a conversation that people tend to avoid, but it's very real and it's very important, especially now, I think, more than ever. So before we get started on all that talk, let's find out more a little bit about you guys. Can you tell us what one of your biggest challenges you faced along the way of your career, your academia life? What's the biggest challenge you faced, and how did you overcome it, which I think is the most important question. Shay, let's start with you this time.
Okay, great. So I would say the couple of the biggest challenges that I've faced in my life, just I would say in general, not even specifically academic or career related, was personal trauma, in my childhood, and then also just very poor negative self-image, low self-esteem, disordered eating. Those were some huge challenges that I have faced. But the way that I overcame that was seeking help and going to therapy when I was 15, and never looking back. It was the best decision I ever made for myself, and it has only benefited my mental health, but also my academia, my career since then.
Awesome. That's amazing.
Yes. So first, for clarification, when you mean challenges, you mean during my time in college, or just in general?
Whichever one you want. Why not?
Yeah, sorry, I just went off the rails there.
No, that's perfect.
That's fine. So I think for me, one challenge that I faced was that I went to a school that was predominantly white, and I was very often I was the only Black person in class and all of that. And I struggled with wanting to fit into that culture without really knowing the negative impacts of microaggressions. Really, I sort of normalized it for myself, and I kind of put up with it. So moving away from that environment and then going to college, I went to a college that is more diverse than my high school, and I just feel so much more comfortable in my own skin. But it was definitely a transition to go from my high school experience to my college experience. So it was a struggle. but I'm doing better at it, and I feel more comfortable in my skin and everything. So
Yeah. And I think you both brought up different things that I think is an ongoing challenge, really, right? It's not like, okay, now I'm solved, now I'm good, moving on. It's something that you guys have to struggle with every day, that we think about all the time, that we constantly have to be like, no, like we're, I don't know. That's just like
Yeah.
what I think of it as well.
It's definitely something you have to stay on top of, I guess, in regards to mental health as a whole. You always have to pay attention to your mental health, or else, you kind of slide back into old habits. At least that's how it has happened for me personally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. More positively, have you guys had any mentors throughout your career that have helped you along the way? I know, Shay, you were talking about going to therapy, things like that. Do you have something that helped you along the way?
So I wouldn't say that I have one single mentor. I've had many different mentors for different chapters of my life. And that ranges from high school teachers that I became close with, undergraduate professors, my current clinical supervisors, and my therapist, especially, and relatives. So I wouldn't say there was one singular person, because I think that it takes a community effort, I would say.
Yeah, I would say the same. There's so many professors and faculty members at Lynn, and then also in the community, who've helped me along the way. I just feel really grateful for all the people that I've connected with and all of that. So I can't say it's one person either.
Yeah. Okay. So different question, I guess. What is something that set those specific people apart from everyone else? Because we all know a lot of people, but not everyone helps us and supports us in the same way. So like, what's, I guess, one characteristic that sets those group of people apart?
Mm-hmm. Okay. I'd say it's how passionate that person is. Like, I've interacted with some professors who are just so passionate about their job, who just want to help me exceed, like push me, and so people who just really, I guess, love what they do, and are willing to go above and beyond to help you. And I think that the passion, really.
Yeah.
And especially going off of, just if we're talking about professors or teachers, I think that building a good rapport and relationship with your professors is super important. And I think that once you show them your vulnerability, they will show it back in return, and they kind of bridge that gap between being your superior and also being a human being. So I think that those kinds of relationships, I think it starts with you being vulnerable, and seeing, really, you just have to kind of find those people who will be vulnerable with you in return.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And now I get another follow-up question to that, and not to like go too deep, because I do want us to talk about the pandemic a little later in the show, but do you think the pandemic is going to help us find people like that we can be vulnerable with, people that are passionate about what they do, or do you think the pandemic will kind of deter that a little, make it harder?
There's good and bad that came from the pandemic, definitely. I think the way that we communicate with each other and the way that we find those resources are changing. A lot of it's going to be virtual interactions now. Some people aren't really comfortable with virtual interactions. So it's definitely going to be different. There are, in certain ways, it's more accessible too, because I feel like there's more opportunities coming, like more things developing, like, different apps and forums where you can talk to people now because of this crisis and everything. Mm-hmm. People are coming together in a way that's never been before. So there's positive and negative aspects to it, I think, for sure.
And I definitely feel, in addition to the pandemic, with a lot of the other issues that we have seen arise this summer, just globally, and in our country specifically, that also creates those communities of people who want to talk and have those tough conversations and get uncomfortable. And I think that really deepens relationships it creates new ones and it deepens existing ones to really talk about the harder things.
Yeah, that's a good point as well. Awesome, guys. Great stuff. What advice would you guys give to someone looking to go into the field that you guys are in or looking to do what you guys are doing?
I would say don't be afraid to reach out to whoever. Like, for example, I reached out to this psychologist that I don't know personally. He lives in Texas at the moment, I believe. And I found out about him through one of my professors. And I was looking at his work and his site, and then I just decided, you know what, I'm just going to email him. I don't think he's going to respond, but whatever, I'm just going to email him. So yeah, it's worth a shot. So I asked him some advice, asked him, like, this was during my freshman year of college. So I asked him for some advice, and I said, like, what do you think I should do as a freshman? Like, psychology is so broad, all these things. And what can I do to really make a change, make an impact in the world? So I sent out that email, and then his name is Dr. Jeffrey Kotler. I just like shout out, but he emailed me back, and he emailed me back this most inspirational, really well thought out email. You know, I was not expecting that. And I connected with him more after that. I emailed him when I needed advice on things. And then this amazing full circle moment happened when I first emailed him in freshman year. But senior year, he came to Lynn University, where I go to school, for a talk. And not knowing that I went to Lynn, he completely forgot that. It was completely coincidental. So when I saw that he was coming for a talk, I emailed him like, oh my goodness, that's where I go to school. And then he's like, wow, that's crazy. So my senior year, I actually got to meet him in person, and it was this amazing full circle moment. And we took pictures and everything, and it was so powerful. So my advice is to just put yourself out there, and don't feel like there's limitations. Like, just reach out to whoever it is that you're inspired by, and just ask for advice. Make those connections.
Wow, that's such a great story.
That is a cool story. I completely second that. I also feel like shadowing and asking to shadow a professional in your field is never a bad idea. The worst that they can say is no, but that hasn't happened to me. I think really trying to go and get some observational experience to kind of ensure that that's the field that you want to pursue, or if maybe you go in shadow and you're like, this is not for me anymore, this is not what I expected it to be. I also think it's just specifically for speech, you have to love working with people and working on teams. You work with a lot of different healthcare professionals. So yeah, that would be my advice.
That's awesome. I love how both of your advice is like build off of one another. I think that's great. You've been playing that either, so I think that's really cool. My next question is to just dive a little deeper into the topic. What does mental health mean to each of you?
Yeah. So to me, mental health is really just well-being. So I often think of it as like your own personal roots. You know, like a plant has roots. Mental health to me is like the roots, and you want to make sure that the roots are nurtured, because mental health affects so many other parts of you. Your physical health, the way you interact with others, your emotions, your feelings, everything. So to me, it's just well-being.
Yeah.
When I think of mental health, I think about taking care of my body and my mind to the best of my ability. So being mentally healthy for me looks like being my best, most productive self, emotionally, physically, socially, but also giving myself the space to maybe not be my best self sometimes and not beating myself up about it. I think that's the most important part, is knowing that it's just a balance. Mental health is a balance. Every day is different. You take it one day at a time.
Yeah. So you both talked about physical health. How closely related are mental health and physical health?
Yeah, extremely, extremely related. I mean, I mean, just think about if you're nervous for a presentation or something. Oftentimes you get sweats, you just feel nervous. That's a minute example, but it's definitely related to each other's.
Yeah, in terms of like when you have terrible anxiety and you start to like shake or sweat, I know that I definitely get that. If we're talking about like physical health in terms of exercising, I think that is definitely based on the individual. And like, while I definitely have found personal benefits in relieving my own stress and anxiety through moving my body, I don't think that avenue necessarily works for everybody. I think it's up to the individual to kind of figure out what works for them. But it's definitely helped me, so I can only speak to my own experience.
Yeah, I mean, I love doing yoga. I think yoga is definitely something that's like that centers you. It makes your body feels good. It makes your mind feel good. So, yes.
Yeah, that's awesome. This show is for us to just talk about our experiences. Like, we're not experts in the field. I think we all know that just by our age, honestly.
Yeah.
But it's good having these conversations and bringing our experience to it. So there are people who go through similar experiences, and I think hearing other people talk about it, they're like, oh, I do that too. Now I feel better. I think it's important. That's just a little plug there. So for someone looking to do an assessment, a mental health assessment, what are some avenues they can take to get that done, to do that?
So I would definitely say if you are a university student like we are, take advantage of your university's free counseling center. That's what I did when I was in college. I started taking advantage of that program when I was a sophomore, and I did it for the rest of my time at UF. And it was one of the best decisions I ever made for myself, just because not only are you under stress from just being in college and having to deal with a lot of heavy coursework, but just personally, whatever personal struggles that you're facing can really take a toll on you, and you don't want to let it build up, and then you find yourself depressed or anxious. So I would definitely say to take advantage of that. And also really just looking, if you're not at school and you want to pursue that, just kind of, you just got to dive headfirst into it. You rip the Band-Aid off. Going to counseling can seem really scary and intimidating, to kind of have to be so vulnerable with a complete stranger for the first time in your life. But I promise that it does work. And I think that but it takes time. It's not a one and done process. You have to be committed and make your mental health a priority, like you would prioritize other things. It takes a lot of time. It's a lot of working on yourself, but it does pay off. And I think that there's a misconception about therapy, that you go and then they fix you, or they're trying to fix you, but that's not necessarily the case. They're just giving you the tools to help maybe cope better with whatever you're dealing with in your life.
Yeah. In addition, I'd say NAMI is a great resource too, which is the National Alliance on Mental Illness. And if you go on their website, NAMI.org, there's a bunch of resources. There's like also a helpline. There's local chapters. So if you call them, they can help you find the resources that you need. And also they have wonderful materials to just educate yourself, so you can become aware of everything that has to do with mental health.
Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I also think that's a huge problem with mental health. It's just that people don't know, and they just think, oh, it's not that serious. I don't know. I don't know if I said a lot there. I said, a lot. I just think if people are more educated on the issue, that they can seek the help they need and not be so scared to do it as well. I think there's also a stigma around. We'll get to that. Hold on. I'm getting ahead of it. So what is something that we can look for in our friends if we think they're struggling with a mental health issue? And what is something that we can suggest for them? And how would we go about suggesting help for them and things like that? I guess just to be aware of our friends.
So definitely looking for signs of depression and anxiety, which can manifest differently in people. So that could be someone who is not sleeping at all or sleeping all day long, falling behind in their work or their schoolwork, change in eating habits or extreme change in eating habits, rather, drawing back socially. Those are just some of the more, I would say, obvious signs. But some people, and I have to say, like myself, can be really good at still getting up and going to class and being productive in my academic work, but struggling behind closed doors. So it can be really tricky depending on who you're kind of dealing with, what that looks like. But I think just one of the best things that I found through my relationship with the people in my life is just doing checking in with your friends. And it really does go a long way. And if they express to you that they are struggling, suggesting, counseling, suggesting things like that in a gentle, kind way to kind of let them know, like, I'm here for you, I support you, and I'm talking about this because I care about you.
Yeah, what Shay said is great. Like, there's so many ways that a person might hide what they're feeling, or you might see the abnormalities too. But I know, me personally, it's something that I'm working on as well, because there have been times when my friend has reached out to me and I maybe necessarily wasn't the support that I should have been. So it's definitely something that is tricky and it's tough. But if you see a friend that is struggling, if you see someone that is struggling, referring them to different resources and just showing them that you're there goes a long way. Definitely being there for them and hearing them out and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Talking about your mental health, it's a hard thing to do. And it's hard to admit to yourself that you might be struggling. And while it may come easy for me now to have open conversations like this about my own struggles with my mental health, it's not easy for everyone. And it's been like years in the making for me to even get to this point. But I've had some of the hardest conversations with my friends, and friends have had hard conversations with me regarding the state of mine or their mental health. But I think as long as you're gentle when you approach it and you approach it in the appropriate way, it just lets that, like I said before, it just lets that person know, like, hey, I really, really care about you. And I am concerned, and I just want you to be your best self.
That's good. I also think of things like, Shay, you mentioned it earlier, knowing when to step back and take a day for yourself and not being so hard on yourself. I think that's also another thing that we can do to help our friends. Like, if we're all really stressed, like we're all in grad school right now. Hey, you're having a tough day. We have a lot going on. Like, take the day off, like relax. It's okay. Yeah. Kind of reassuring them that it's not the end of the world. They can do it, I think that's also really important, because I know some people get bogged down. I mean, we all get bogged down with all the coursework and all the work we're doing, and it can be overwhelming, but knowing that it's okay to take a day and relax is important as well.
Definitely.
Awesome. So we kind of talked about it a little bit, the stigma surrounding mental health. What are things we can do to combat those stigmas, and what are some, well, I think we know some of the stigmas, but if you could talk about it a little bit, just so if someone doesn't know, one of our audience.
I think it's so important. Sorry. I think it's so important to educate yourself. Like I said, go on notme.org, go on these different sites, educate yourself about the different mental health illnesses and everything. That's step number one. I think another thing that's important is to refrain from offensive terms or languages, or don't say someone's crazy, or like that person's overreacting or something like that. Trying to be empathetic to what a person's going through, actually listening to them and believing them when they say that they're struggling, instead of minimizing their problems, and then being a support to them.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I would say, like many of the other movements that are happening in our country right now, you just got to keep having those tough, hard to swallow conversations about the stigma surrounding mental health. So like this can take many forms. For example, I posted on my personal social media recently about my history with disordered eating. So kind of trying or attempting to normalize talking about it, I think is what is ultimately going to reduce the stigma surrounding mental health.
Yeah, that's so important. And I do think of, like, Shay, I know you personally, so I saw that post you posted, and you brought a lot of awareness to the issue, and you even like provided resources, which I think was incredible, because it's like, here's the issue, here's what I personally dealt with, and here's ways to handle it, and that's great. Before we continue and dive deeper, I just want to take a break and go to commercial real quick. That will give us all a second, and then we'll come right back and continue this great conversation. Hi, welcome back. Hello, audience. I hope you stuck with us, and I hope we got new audience, because we're having a really important conversation today talking about mental health with our wonderful guests, Monique and Shay. So great first half of the show. Moving on now, I kind of want to talk more about the pandemic and how that has affected mental health. So what do you guys think about that?
Yeah,
Go ahead. We're just so eager to talk.
Yeah. It's definitely affected mental health. I mean, unfortunately, there's been a lot of domestic abuse cases that's happened. People are feeling isolated. People have lost jobs. All these things affect mental health. So, yeah, it's greatly affected mental health, I'd say. Yeah, Shay.
I feel like I've seen the pandemic affect people in many different ways. So I would say definitely, like Monique was saying, it has really taken a toll on some people's mental health. I think when you're kind of forced to slow down when you're not normally used to that, you kind of face a harsh reality and some much needed self-reflection. But on the flip side, I've seen people thrive in a quarantine and pick up hobbies or interests that they have wanted to do for so long and now are finally getting to. I've definitely done that. The whole banana bread trend, everything like that. So I think that personally, I would say I have felt the pandemic and affect my mental health in kind of waves. Some days I'm just sitting here like, what? But I feel like the world is crashing down around me. And some days I feel great. So I think it just, again, it's definitely personal to the individual, but many different manifestations for sure.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. I mean, for me, it kind of allowed me to delve more into my interests and figure out what's more important to me. So that's definitely been a positive thing. Like, for example, I just kind of became a nerd about community psychology, which is
what is that? Tell us about it.
Yes. So community psychology is this a type of psychology that focuses on communities. So you go into the community, you work with community stakeholders, whether it be a local government, a nonprofit, stuff like that, and see what does a community need, what are they deprived of, what support do they need. So you work with those community stakeholders and do research and try to advocate for change, advocate for the resources that that community needs. So I've just been a nerd and just like looking up all the professors and like all the research that's going on. So that's actually really helped me with my mental health, because I've just put in a lot of my energy into that, and I'm super excited about it. So in that way, it has helped my mental health, the quarantine and everything.
Yeah, that's interesting. And Shay, you were talking earlier about people having time to self-reflect. How do you think that's affected people's self-perception?
So I always love to say that, you know, your longest relationship is with yourself, out of anybody in the whole world. And the quarantine, you know, you have to spend a lot of time with yourself. And I think one of the healthiest things that you can do is self-reflection. And especially, I know I've kind of alluded to the kind of broader movements that are happening in our country right now and globally. I personally have done a lot of self-reflection on those as well. So I think just some people are really, it's a hard pill to swallow sometimes when you have to confront your own. And like Monique was saying in the beginning of the show, microaggressions and, you know, things like that, confronting that, like, and educating yourself and continuing to educate yourself on everything that's happening right now. So some people are very receptive to it. Like myself, I'm definitely always wanting to educate myself on the goings on. And some people I've had conversations with are not so receptive. So it can be tough. Some people don't want to really face themselves, I would say.
Yeah. What do you think, Monique?
Yeah, I mean, that is definitely a thing that people need to like reflect and think about, is just about the different microaggressions and just being more aware of what they're doing, how they're interacting with people, because that's something that does negatively impact people. So when it comes to mental health too, again, like we're talking about stigmas again, just refraining, I've said this before, but refraining from saying someone's crazy, or like when someone's when someone's saying that they're feeling a certain way, don't say they're overreacting, or like just calm down, or you know, listen, hear them out. So
yeah, I wouldn't go and stage some big intervention and corner them, you know, just really approaching them because in a way that lets them know, like, hi, I'm your friend and I care about you deeply and the state of your mental health. It doesn't have to be a whole big thing. And I would also have to say, I wouldn't push the person. If you have someone in your life that you feel needs help, constantly, you know, knocking on that door and saying you need to get help it's just not going to work that way. People don't really like to be told what to do. So just kind of suggestions, and just like I said, just checking in with them. You know, it's up to, ultimately, which is a huge lesson that I've learned in my life, it's up to the individual to seek help. So you can play your part as a loved one in their life, but after that, you know, there comes a point where it's not up to you anymore. It's up to them.
Yeah. And how do people take that, you know, like as a friend, how do you accept that? Like knowing that, hey, I don't think this is a good idea. I think you need help. And knowing that you can't do anything about that. Like what is something we as the outsider can do to be okay with that?
I'm sorry, be okay with that in what aspect?
And
you can clarify.
Well, Shay was just talking about if someone ultimately they have to make the choice about wanting to seek help mentally. How are we supposed to, or I guess like, how do you accept that for yourself, knowing that, hey, I want to do more to help this person, but not constantly be a bother and push them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, that's tough. I may not have the best answer, but I would say just to be there and check in on them, like Shay said before, just always remind them that they have someone they could lean on in tough times if they so choose to. And yeah, just don't ignore them. You know, that's something that I'm working on as well, because I've had friends who were suffering from mental illnesses, and I wasn't there for them as much as I should have. So it's something I'm working on, to constantly check on people and just show them that I'm there. So, yeah.
And I think just being really transparent and, sometimes you have to draw boundaries, and just being really open with the individual, saying, hey, listen, I know we talk about this a lot and I bring it up a lot. This is the last time that I'm going to bring it up, because I don't want to come off as pushy, but I just want you to know that I am here for you and I'm thinking about you. And if you do end up wanting to pursue counseling or whatnot, I'll be here. But kind of just saying, like, listen, you're not being very receptive to what I'm saying. This is the last time I'm going to say it, but this doesn't mean that now I don't want to hear about it anymore.
Yeah, that's good. That's good advice. So talking about a little bit more about the pandemic, how do you think the field is adapting to the changes needed because of the pandemic? Or if it's not, what are some changes you would like to see?
Well, I think we've definitely seen counseling, especially, move from that kind of face-to-face, going to an office, and now people are seeking counseling via teletherapy or telepractice, which I think has been absolutely incredible. I know I personally have friends who have done counseling via teletherapy, and they love it because they don't have to leave their house. It's just easier. I think it will be something. I think what we've seen from this pandemic is that we're not going to see platforms like telehealth or Zoom and whatnot. They are not going to go away. I think we'll transition to something more of like a hybrid type situation, where maybe people can go into the office and see a therapist that way, but maybe they'll have the option to always have some type of teletherapy, which I think is awesome. And I think it really has encouraged more people to seek help if they need it.
Yeah. And another thing, when it comes to more like academia and research, because that's more my type of thing, it's been very helpful, because they've had webinars and conferences going on that are virtually held now. Yeah. So something that was maybe in like Iowa or something that I wouldn't have been able to go to is now free to access online, which is great. So people who are working on research for mental health and mental illness and everything, now they have more opportunities to collaborate, and there's a new avenues for exchange of ideas, I think, in the wake of the pandemic.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's a good benefit of the pandemic.
Yes.
What about like apps and stuff? Like, I know how they have like those that Calm app and other things like that. Do you think those things are beneficial, or are they just like a Band-Aid? I guess is my question.
I think it just depends on, how, I guess, severe somebody is feeling or dealing with depression, anxiety, among other mental health stuff. I think that if you just need to like chill out and you need to just meditate every day and that's what helps you, then yeah, those apps would work great. I think that it's really, you just have to, it's a journey that you have to go on and figure out for yourself, for sure. You can try the apps at first if you're hesitant about therapy. And then if you're not seeing any improvements, then I would just go to counseling. Because like I said, they're not there to fix you, but they are licensed professionals who will give you the means necessary and those kind of mental strategies and tools to help get you out of your rut.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just up to you, like seeing what's right for you, definitely.
Yeah. So, in your opinion, how can we improve the way mental health is handled in our country?
Oh
Yeah,
boy.
I think one thing that I definitely would like to see is more mental health education, mental health resources in schools. So I was just looking at this one organization in Miami, Power U, and they work a lot to advocate for limiting the amount of law enforcement in schools and instead investing in educating students about mental health and also hiring counselors for students, trusted counselors, and that sort of thing. I think that's a huge move because that would help, eliminate that stigma for the next generations to come. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Just creating more opportunities, encouraging kids and adults, offering counseling in the workplace or at least some type of outlet in that respect, I think would just really help. But, it's a really slow process making changes in this country. But I think that we've certainly come a long way when we talk about mental health. We have seen those stigmas, decrease even from talking about mental health 10 years ago. So I think that it just definitely takes time to kind of change people's perspective on what mental health is, but I think we're on the right path. So
yeah.
So is mental health something that's covered under insurance typically, or is that something like extra that people have to take care of?
It depends where you go. So like I mentioned before, your university might offer a free counseling program, which is really not free. It's like in your tuition, it's in your fee is somewhere you're paying for it, but it feels like it's free. But also some therapists, I've had a therapist who doesn't even go through insurance, but I've had other therapy that does. So you just have to call and ask if they accept your insurance if you have it. And so it just depends.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. There's also this one resource that I came across called 7 Cups. Have you guys heard of that at all? 7cups.org, I believe. And it's really cool because it's free to use. So, well, it's free if you choose to talk to someone who's not a licensed professional. So if you have any concerns that you want to talk about, you go into this forum and then you speak to someone. So at least you have some sort of person to talk to about your problems if you don't have that. So you can sign up to be a volunteer if you want to be that resource for a person, or if you need someone to talk to, you can go on and find someone to talk to about your whatever it is you're going through. So I think that's a great resource too. And then if you do want to talk to a licensed professional, I think they have that option and it's paid. But if you want a free resource, that's one that I know of.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
What's it called again?
7cups.org.
7cups.org. That's awesome. That was going to be one of my follow-up questions. Like, what are That's great. No, I love it. So it's, I mean, maybe not right now because a lot of people have time, but like usually when there's not a pandemic, people tend to be very busy and like not want to make time for therapy. What are some different methods that you would suggest for those people to take care of their mental health at home?
I think you really just have to make it a priority like anything else, like the way that you eat your 3 meals a day, or you go and you exercise, or whatever else it is that you love to do, that you prioritize. I think, when you are healthy mentally, that kind of reverberates into other aspects of your life, physically, emotionally, socially. You're just a happier person when your brain is happy. So I think, really making your mental health come first and foremost is just one of those things. And that could be, especially at home, using the meditation apps and doing some meditation or some yoga, or I I don't know, once a week doing a face mask. Just practicing self-care, I think, is the little ways that you can improve your mental health.
Yeah. One thing that I find helpful too is mindfulness. So just finding like the peace and the little things. Like, for example, I love tea. So whenever I make tea, I kind of make it a process. And, I just like steep it and just look at the steam and like smell how it smells, take a sip. And then I make that sort of a whole meditative process. So it's kind of finding like the beauty in the little things is kind of helpful too. But again, like it varies per person. What makes you happy or what puts you at peace is it varies. So
yeah, no, I love that. That's great advice.
Being present in the moment, just being present, and also showing gratitude for what we do going on. It's so easy to sit here and say, I'm not getting the clinical experience I want, for example, or the world is ending and everything sucks. It's so easy to kind of have that negative talk. But when you think about all the things that you are grateful for, being healthy, first of all, not being affected by COVID if you are fortunate in that respect, those things, I think just reminding yourself that one of those cliche quotes that's like, this too shall pass. It will. The hardest parts always do.
Yeah, I love what Shay said, definitely, because I haven't done it like in a while, but I used to do this gratitude box thing. So every day I'd think of something I'm grateful for and I'd collect it for a whole year. So that at the end of the year, I'd just open it up and then I'd just read all the things I was grateful for each day. Now what I do is I just reflect every day, like at night, and think about what it is I'm grateful for. And that's just so good for the soul, so good for the mind to do that. Just think about what it is you're grateful for. And yeah, so I agree 100%, Shay, definitely.
Yeah.
That's great advice. I love that. Wow. I'm taking away really good points. Okay. That's great stuff. I love it. What are some, now moving a little bit more personally, because I see we're a little bit running out of time. What are some of your 3-year goals, individually, professionally, whatever you guys want to talk about? And what are you doing to develop those goals? I know, Monique, you were talking about the community psychology. Like, I don't know if you're planning something with that or
yeah. Yeah, so right now, like I said, I'm working on my master's, and that's for 1 year. And then I hope to get into a program for community psychology and after that. So I'm working on that, and right now, I'm trying to connect more with community members and that sort of thing. So I'm going to start interviewing people, kind of similar to what's happening now, I guess. On this site called Web Talk. It's a new social media platform, which I think they'll plug in later. But I'm going to start talking to people and reaching out to community members and asking, how it is we could get involved. What are things that we can do differently to support each other in our community? So that's what I've been doing to try to develop those skills.
That's awesome. What about you, Shay?
I am a year in and a year out from finishing my master's program. So really that is my goal, to finish in the next year and then do my clinical fellowship that we have to do and finally become a licensed speech language pathologist. So that's really my main priority right now, is to focus on school and finish school.
Yeah, definitely. That's awesome. That's a huge goal in itself, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome. So you guys did great today, talked about really important stuff. And I want, one of the goals of the show is just to connect different young professionals, connect people who have similar ideas or who need help. And, oh, Shay said that really important thing, or Monique said this, I want to talk to them about it. So if you guys want to provide contact information, social media handles, whatever you want, just so people can get in contact with you if they need it or want to.
Yeah, so you can follow me on Instagram if you'd like. I'm at underscore Monique Mary. So yes, it's there. And then also on Web Talk, that's a new social media platform that's really cool. So you should look into it. And on there, I'll start posting videos, talking to different community members. I'll do live streams on that. So if you want to connect with me there too.
That's awesome.
And you can follow me on Instagram at Shay Liz Fitz.
That's so cute.
That's all.
That's awesome. Thank you both for coming on this show and having this important conversation that I think a lot of people don't talk about. So thank you guys, and thank you for providing your input and being so honest on the show and talking about this with us.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you a million. Yes.
So to the next 2020 family, I want to let you guys know that this is going to be our last show for a while. School is starting back up for a lot of people, so I think now would be a good time to kind of take a break and rethink the format a little bit. So we'll be back. Stay up to date on the Boca Raton Tribune's Facebook and YouTube. Definitely like it, follow it, so you can get all the current updates of what's happening with my show and all the other shows and great news that the Boca Raton Tribune provides. Thanks so much for following along this is episode number 12, I think. So thanks so much for following along, growing the viewers, and having these great conversations. I hope you guys have enjoyed it as much as I have. And this isn't goodbye. We'll be back. But have a great little break. Thanks so much, guys. Bye.